A year or two back, I did a video stating I was done collecting vintage Star Wars toys. Well, it turns out I'm a bit of a liar, and I have just now finished collecting vintage Star Wars toys. So stay tuned to see what it is that I've picked up from my collection. Welcome back. Now, you may have seen a few videos in a series I've been doing called Last Chance Saloon Pickups, whereby we will be moving overseas shortly, and I think the chance to be able to pick up toys from my childhood are pretty much non-existent in Thailand. So it's been a case of now or never, and I've just been bringing in as many items from my childhood as I possibly can, and of course that has involved Star Wars. Now, despite saying I was done collecting vintage Star Wars a couple years back, in the back of my mind I knew there would come the point where I wanted to get the vehicles and playsets that I had as a kid. So I've been going crazy, I've been spending way too much money, but it is for a good cause, because let's face it, Star Wars, or vintage Star Wars, is a very good cause. So without wasting any more of your time, let's take a look at some of the items that I have picked up from my vintage Star Wars collection. So, starting out from my childhood, we have the Snowspeeder. Now, this one is not in great condition, it's adequate. And first things first, you will see it is missing the harpoon, which is perfectly okay, because I had managed to lose my harpoon as a kid, so this is how I remember the Snowspeeder. Furthermore, the electronics do not work. Again, this is going to be on display, don't need to be having lights and sound. Now, it definitely does need a bit of a clean, and I will do that prior to displaying it, but for the most part, this one is as good an example as you will find for the very cheap price that I paid. So all in all, very, very happy to get this one back in the collection. So next up, again from my childhood, is Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. Now, this one is slightly problematic in that the clip that holds the wings in place is broken. So I will be gluing that prior to displaying it, but for reasons of transportation, I will not be gluing it at this point. Slightly discolored, but all in all, for the price I paid, I'm very happy with it. And much like the Snowspeeder, this one has a lot of corrosion in the battery compartment. Not a problem, I won't be using it as a toy, so as a display piece, once it gets cleaned up, I think this will be a pretty good part of the collection. And this one I chose particularly because the stickers on the wings are pretty good. And as you can see, as I was mentioning here, it's this clip that it's not holding in place, but a bit of super glue will get that remedied quite well, I would imagine. But as I said, in order to transport it, there's no point in gluing it in place at this point. But this is the Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. And next up, again from childhood, is Jabba the Huts playset. Now, this one, you will think to yourself, well, he's missing something, and that is correct, but that is not a problem, because I have this bagged Salacious Crumb that has been in my possession for a couple of years at this point. So I managed to find the playset minus Crumb for a really good price. Everything is present and correct, including Slave Leia's chain there, which is often missing. The hookah, the bowl, everything is there. And if I'm being absolutely honest, back in '83 when I got this for Christmas, I was somewhat disappointed. This wasn't a cool spaceship. This was like a weird slug on a rather odd looking throne. But to see it again puts a smile on my face. And if you want to make a nice diorama based on the Return of the Jedi movie, you absolutely do need to get this in your collection. So to see it once again makes me happy, and the fact that I can finally use this guy makes it all the more worthwhile. So there you go, Jabba the Huts playset. And now this item here, the AST5, is the final item I'll be showing at this stage, which is an item I had as a kid. Everything else are new items to me, but this was a wonderful mini rig. And I remember getting that for Christmas in '83. I had no idea what it was, but I thought it was cool. And I absolutely love the sound that these turrets make. It's a very satisfying clicking sound, as you can hear there. Also here, one thing Kenner did well were their clicking sounds, but this one especially, wonderful sound. This one's in pretty decent condition, not at all expensive to get hold of, and I think the stickers are all present and correct, including the ones under the canopy. Yep, there you go, everything is good for this. So this is the final item that I had to get based on what I had as a kid. So coming up are the items that I really didn't need but ended up wanting. So now we're looking at the AS6 Mini Rig. Now this is not an item I had as a child, but in terms of my display going forward, I'm going to have all my figures lined up in one part of the collection and then have small dioramas set up using some of the retro collection figures and the figures I'm about to show you. Now I will have one small display with the Emperor, couple of Royal Guards and a bunch of Stormtroopers, so I figured it would be cool to have this in the background just behind those figures. Now clearly it's not the Imperial Shuttle, but it's the next best thing. Got this one for a really good price. Everything is present and correct, with the exception of a couple of little stickers that are missing. Now I have sourced some replica stickers on eBay up here and here. I may have an attempt at trying to make them myself, and should that fail, I'll just buy the replica stickers, but this really was a wonderful mini rig, and I do like the action feature where the wings pop down into flight mode. A really, really cool looking ship, and one that I'm very happy to have added to my collection. And once again, another item I never had, but I do remember playing with this at my friend's house, probably circa 82, I believe. This is the INT4, another of the amazing mini rigs that Kenner gave us. This one is in really good condition. All the stickers are there. They're pretty well applied. I've said this many times, but a lot of vintage toys, the stickers are all over the place because some kid back in the day didn't know what he was doing, but these ones are reasonably good. Again, with these mini rigs, these were such great value for money toys. I believe the cost of one mini rig was about maybe 2 or 3 figures, so not at all expensive back then. And even in this day and age, for a vintage Star Wars item, these are not that expensive, so I'm really glad to have added this one. So let's move on and we'll take a look at some more of the mini rigs that I've picked up. So here we have the MLC3, and I should point out as well, the reason I've been picking these up is because I already have a number of the mini rigs and accessories that came during the Empire Strikes range. I figured, what the hell, let's just collect them all. So here we are, MLC3. Again, didn't own it as a kid, but I distinctly remember playing with it as a kid. I always admired it. The ones I had as a kid were the MTV7 and the PDT8, and I always did want this one, so to finally get one makes me very happy. And as again, the stickers are pretty well applied. I don't know if an adult maybe did this one, but they seem to be where they should be, and they've lasted very well over these decades. So this is MLC3. And here we have the radar laser cannon. This was one that I was not going to bother picking up, but it came up for a really good price and it was too good to pass up on. Again, never had it as a kid, never really wanted it as a kid, but it does complete my line of 80s Empire Strikes Back mini rigs and accessories. So for the price I paid, it was worth getting, and of course it does have a nice action feature where the whole thing explodes into little pieces, and I will do a further video looking at these mini rigs in much more detail, but all in all, for the price I paid, it's going to look really nice on display. And to round out the vehicles, and indeed round out the complete lineup of mini rigs, we have the Cap 2. This was one that I really did not care for as a child. I remember playing with it at a friend's house. I did not like it, but now that I see it in this day and age, it is a pretty cool looking vehicle, and the fact that this has basically become Bossk's own little vessel makes it a little bit cooler. Now this is one that I think is in pretty okay condition. The dome is somewhat yellowed, as you can see, but aside from that, everything else is present and correct. The stickers seem to be reasonably well applied. and the little trap feature does indeed work. So I've not decided yet if I'm going to have M.a.s.k with a prisoner in the back or not, or just put my M.a.s.k figure into the cockpit. But all in all, once you see it with the other mini rigs, I think it does look kind of cool. So finally, we'll take a quick look at some of the figures I've picked up to populate my dioramas. Now, I'll be as quick as I can. So this is a retro collection Darth Vader. Already have one that I'm using for another purpose. So I got this one to go into the Tantive 4 playset because I do have all those extra Rebel Fleet Troopers courtesy of Stan Solo. And speaking of Stan Solo, we have another Greedo to go into the Ubrikian 9000 speeder that he made. So all in all, 2 figures to represent my playsets or dioramas from the first Star Wars movie. So now for the Hoth scene. Now you would have just seen my Snowspeeder, so obviously I had to get another Luke Snowspeeder pilot to go with that. And believe it or not, Amazon had the game on a ridiculously cheap sale price, so I just bought that, threw the game in the garbage, so got the figure for about, I think it's about $13 or something, which isn't at all bad. So he will go with the Snowspeeder, and on that similar subject, we have Luke Skywalker to go on the Tauntaun that I already own. 2 AT-AT drivers. The reason there's 2 is I'm going to use one on my MTV7, and the other one I'm going to put inside the INT4. And still on Hoth, we have Rebel Commander for the MLC3, and now we have not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4, but we've got 5 Rebel soldiers, one of which I already had the backpack for, so got one really cheap. And again, most of these figures did not come with weapons, so the prices are really good. So this one will be used on things like my PDT-8, and also I have the Energizer station and things, so he can go with that. And we have another 4 that came in a lot. These 4 came together as one lot. These are all pretty good looking figures. Now, I did stress I did not want beater figures, but again, I wasn't going to pay top dollar for prime figures. But all in all, the figures I've picked up, for the most part, I mean, this guy's legs, a bit of paint wear, but for the most part, these are all pretty reasonable looking figures. Now, coming up next, still more figures representing the Empire Strikes Back movie. So as you would have just seen, we do have the cap too. So we have an extra M.a.s.k, a vintage M.a.s.k. Now I do have all 6 of the Retro Collection Bounty Hunters. I am using them as part of their own display, so I had to find myself a vintage M.a.s.k. Now I do have the twin pod cloud car, so for that I needed not 1 but 2 pilots, and this is not an easy figure to get hold of in reasonable condition. With it being a white figure, there's normally a lot of yellowing. This guy on the left here, his limbs are somewhat yellowed, but if he's sitting in the cloud car, not a big deal. And again, no weapons or comm links, but I have bags and bags of Stan Solo reproduction weapons that will be getting used on these and all the other figures you've seen thus far. So because we have the Lando Calrissian as part of the Empire Retro Collection wave, I'm going to have Lando and this Lobot standing by the cloud car. Now this figure came with a weapon, and the seller said he didn't know if it was repro or not, which is code for it is repro, but that is absolutely not a problem for me. So next up, we'll look at the figures I got from my Return of the Jedi displays. So I've got this version of Klaatu to go inside the AST5. I realise Kenner used the other Klaatu for that vehicle, but this one was just so cheap I couldn't pass him up, so snapped him up for the AST5. For Jabba's playset, we got Squid Head, Bib Fortuna. Everything is there minus the weapons, but again, these are just going to be standing next to the throne, so weapons not that big of a deal. Some staining on the back here, up here, staining a little bit on Squid Head's skirt there, but just for standing there, not a problem. Now, I actually got another slave Leia from Stan Solo to go on the playset for Jabba the Hutt, because I'm using my first one as part of the lineup of figures. So I believe at this point in time, what should really only be about 96 figures currently stands about 120, I believe, taking into account variants, retro collection figures that were never made previously, as well as the Stan Solos. So this one is primarily for my Jabba the Hutt's playset. And last of all, I'll do a small Endor scene. So I got myself a couple of Rebel Commandos, and these are pretty good actually. Again, the only problem with this is Stan Solo did not do a repro of his rifle, so I'll need to figure out what kind of gun to put in these guys' hands. But honestly, that's the least of my worries. So there you go. Those are the figures that I have now purchased from my collection, and at this point I can say I am done collecting vintage Star Wars. So I hope you enjoyed that look there at the final items I have added to my vintage Star Wars collection. And I've got to be honest with you, I am so happy to finally get the items I had as a kid back into my collection, and just seeing them again does make me very happy indeed. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, please share the video, make sure you're subscribed, and as always, stay tuned for more videos from All Things 80s.